Prince Harry arrived in Britain believing it might mark the beginning of reconciliation. He envisioned a discreet visit, a few quiet discussions, perhaps even a private handshake behind palace doors. What he encountered instead was an icy reception, one that went beyond the press and palace staff, extending to the very institution he once proudly served, the military. The soldiers stood immaculate in their uniforms, their posture rigid, eyes fixed ahead. They offered him nothing, no salute, no acknowledgement, not even the briefest glance. For a man who once wore the same uniform with honor and earned respect through active service, the silence spoke louder than any insult. That moment, the refusal to salute, transformed what could have been an ordinary royal visit into a global headline. The incident was recorded, circulated online, and quickly went viral. The narrative shifted instantly. This was no longer about strained family ties, it was about respect, or more accurately, its withdrawal. The symbolism was stark. In royal tradition, a salute is not merely a gesture. It signifies honor, rank, and belonging. It is not given lightly, but to those still recognized as part of the institution. In that instant, Harry was not. The same man once applauded in uniform, who served 2 tours in Afghanistan, who was celebrated at parades and commended for his service, now passed before soldiers who did not so much as flinch. For many observers, the image struck deeply. Regardless of one's loyalties, whether supportive of Harry or the palace, the visual carried undeniable weight. It was not dramatic or loud. It was controlled, deliberate, almost surgical. Guards carrying out their duty by doing nothing at all, which only heightened the severity. According to those close to the palace, this was no accident. It was not a rash decision by a few guards, but a carefully observed protocol. No salute, no display, no warmth. The message required no words, it was written in action. The royal family rarely makes overt displays. Instead, they allow moments like these to convey their stance. And the meaning was unmistakable. Actions carry consequences. Harry's path did not simply involve stepping back from royal obligations. He moved into something altogether different: streaming deals, major interviews, high-profile documentaries. Each decision pulled him further from the traditions he inherited and deeper into the world of celebrity. For some, his actions seemed courageous. For others, they felt like betrayal. But no matter where you stand, the fallout is undeniable. This trip to the UK was meant to be about reconciliation, private talks with King Charles, an effort to mend broken ties, perhaps even a chance to reconnect. Yet that became nearly impossible when even the palace guards refused to acknowledge his presence. And then there's Meghan Markle. Her name lingers whether she's there or not. Many believe she played a central role in Harry's departure from royal life. Some blame her for widening the rift between him and his family, while others credit her with giving him the confidence to speak out. Either way, her influence remains impossible to ignore, and this visit was no exception. You could feel her shadow in the silences, the glances, and the unspoken tension. The soldiers' refusal to salute cut deeper than the act itself. It symbolized something greater. Even for a prince, even for someone born into one of the most powerful dynasties in the world, respect is not permanent. It must be earned and maintained. When you walk away from the throne, you shouldn't expect the throne to follow. It wasn't just the soldiers who made that clear. The entire atmosphere around Harry's return felt different. He arrived without the typical royal motorcade. No fanfare, no ceremonial welcome. The palace released no statement, no flags were raised, and staff were reportedly instructed to keep everything strictly professional. No gestures that could be mistaken for ceremony. He had returned, but not as a royal, only as a visitor with a famous name. For someone raised in privilege, accustomed to deference, the contrast must have been striking. Onlookers noted he appeared noticeably tense. He smiled for cameras, offered polite waves, but his body language told another story. Hands clenched, shoulders tight, and an absence of the confident composure he once carried in uniform. This wasn't the Prince Harry of balcony appearances or overseas tours. This was a man walking through familiar streets that no longer felt like his own. When the video surfaced of the guards standing frozen as he passed, social media erupted. The footage was chilling in its quiet precision. It spread rapidly. Millions of views, endless reposts, TikToks with dramatic soundtracks, and YouTube breakdowns dissecting every frame. Some rushed to defend Harry, arguing the military had overstepped. But the larger consensus was clear. It felt like poetic justice. The message was unmistakable. You turned your back on tradition, And now tradition has turned its back on you. Reports suggest Harry had hoped for a warmer, more personal reception. Instead, what he found was distance, silence, and a reminder that some doors close quietly and stay closed. Perhaps he hoped for something small, a nod from someone who once served under him, a glance from an old acquaintance in uniform, some subtle sign that he still belonged to that world. But none of that came. The military, much like the monarchy, runs on rules and protocol. Harry had stepped outside the chain of command, and now even those who once stood shoulder to shoulder with him followed orders that rendered him invisible. This silence wasn't personal. It wasn't about whether soldiers liked or disliked Harry. It was about sending a message. Institutions like the military and the monarchy don't speak through tweets or press releases, they communicate through symbols. In this case, the lack of a salute, the absence of even the faintest acknowledgement, became one of the loudest statements of all. The message was clear: you're out. Until you return fully, if you ever do, the uniform doesn't see you. There was also pride at play. For those still serving, especially those loyal to the crown, Harry's public criticism of the monarchy cut deep. The Oprah interview, the Netflix deals, the stream of revelations and accusations directed at the very system they swore to protect, none of it sat well. To them, Harry wasn't simply telling his truth. It felt like betrayal, as if someone with privileged access to the inner circle chose spectacle over service. Even among the British public, opinion remains divided. Some argue that Harry has been treated unfairly, punished for daring to challenge outdated traditions. Others insist he made his choice, he walked away, and now he must live with the reality of life outside. The royal safety net, the image of soldiers standing motionless as a prince walked by, was something no scriptwriter could have invented. It looked cinematic, almost unreal, yet it was reality. The real wound wasn't the lack of ceremony, but what it revealed. Harry may never be fully welcomed back. Not by the soldiers, not by the staff, and perhaps not by the crown itself. His identity has shifted, from a beloved prince to a symbol of conflict, tension, and unresolved pain. Whether he realizes it or not, every silent rejection, every turned head, serves as a reminder that some doors do not reopen with a simple apology. Harry's official schedule was filled with private meetings, but behind closed doors the atmosphere was just as cold. Reports suggest he did meet with King Charles, though the encounter was heavily restricted. No cameras, no formal photographs, just a cup of tea and a brief conversation lasting less than an hour. No public statement followed. No gesture of warmth, just silence. No statement came from the palace press office. Whatever was discussed behind closed doors, it did nothing to soften the silence or shift the optics. If anything, it highlighted the divide more clearly. Harry was allowed into the room, but not back into the fold. One insider described the encounter as strictly transactional, polite and surface level, but devoid of emotion or warmth. It felt more like two people speaking out of obligation than a father and son attempting to heal. The royal family has always managed emotions privately, but this went beyond private. It was distant, measured, every detail handled with deliberate precision. Harry wasn't treated as an adversary, but he also wasn't embraced as a son returning home. He was managed, and in many ways that felt even colder. Outside the palace walls, the media frenzy ignited. Commentators dissected every move, every word, and every silence. Harry's clothing choices, who he spoke with, the length of his meetings, even the routes his car took, all of it became fuel for speculation. But this time, the scrutiny wasn't just about curiosity. It was about accountability. People wanted to know, was this the first step toward a return or confirmation of permanent exile? The harshest truth was that no dramatic gestures were needed. The guards didn't raise their voices. The staff didn't stage a confrontation. The palace didn't release a statement. The silence itself carried the weight. That's the sharp edge of royal protocol. It can erase you without ever addressing you directly. For Harry, despite his global fame and wealth, that quiet exclusion hit hardest. He wasn't punished. He was ignored. And sometimes that's far more devastating. Meghan's absence also drew attention. Many had expected her to join him, but she remained in California. Whether it was a calculated decision or simply convenience, people speculated endlessly. Some suggested she stayed away to avoid further controversy, while others saw it as proof of an unbridgeable divide between her and the monarchy. Either way, her absence gave critics more room to point to her influence without distraction. She wasn't physically there, but her name reverberated through every headline and online debate. When Harry finally departed, nothing changed. No last-minute gesture, no final salute, no formal acknowledgement. Just a quiet exit under the same shadow that marked his arrival. By then, it was clear the visit had done little to repair strained ties. Perhaps it opened a small line of communication. Perhaps not. But the institution's stance was unmistakable. Its message had already been delivered in silence. In the world of royalty, loyalty is the ultimate currency, and once spent on personal narrative, it's rarely returned. The public remains divided over whether Harry deserves the treatment he received. To some, he is the rebel prince who dared to challenge the system and speak truth to power. To others, he is a man of privilege who abandoned the very institution that shaped and elevated him. No matter the perspective, one thing is undeniable. The moment carried extraordinary weight. The soldiers' refusal to salute, the palace's deliberate neutrality, the suffocating silence within halls that were once his home. Together, they created an image more powerful than words. For Harry, this was not just another visit. It was a reckoning. A reckoning not only with his family, but with the centuries-old institution that forged his identity. And in that world, redemption has no shortcuts. Fame cannot rewrite protocol. Streaming deals cannot replace tradition. The crown does not chase after those who walk away. If Harry wants back in, the burden is on him to return fully. Only then can the question of belonging be answered.